smart. And I think that Janel does deserve her to tell her story when she wants to, how she wants to. And another thing that Ann Callis started out this call with was talking about how Janel is a human. She is a very smart woman. But now, because of what she's been through at the hands of John Laurinaitis, Vince McMahon, WWE, she suffers from suicidal ideation. She cannot leave her home for weeks at a time, which we knew. They've talked about this before, but she drove that point home again. So when you are watching this documentary, keep that in mind, that however they present this, Janel is a human being who is both a victim and a survivor of Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE
and the company.
She deserves to have her story told, which they really drove home throughout this call, was that she deserves justice for what happened to her. She deserves to have her life back. And I can't imagine, you and I have talked about this several times, like after reading the lawsuit, like the courage it takes to admit to yourself that those things happen to you, then to have the courage to tell other people this, and then to go even further to tell a lawyer this, who is, they're going to have questions, that other people are going to have lawyers. People are going to vilify. We've seen it. We saw it in this chat 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, right.
How people were going to react to her and her story. And she still had the courage to come forward and say out loud what happened to her, and that she is still suffering from this many years later. And
sadly, this has only just begun, because our legal system is not an incredibly quick situation. And again, they've got this case stayed because
the DOJ
of federal issues.
Yep.
And
so that was a question that was asked. Janel's lawsuit is stayed through December of this year. And BJ Bethel actually asked, are you frustrated with this process of them taking so long? And Ann said, no, I used to be a judge. I know these things take time, and I would rather them be right than fast.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an important thing to remember.
Like her. I mean, obviously, I read her background. I know she's dead. This is a power lawyer. She's gal.
I don't think that, we've talked about this before, I don't think that Janel Grant could have picked a better person to represent her than Ann Callis, because Ann Callis has the background. She has the fortitude to see this out as long as it takes. And I'm sure they weren't planning for the case to have a 6-month stay. And it kind of delayed things.
I don't think that when they file a civil case that you think that all of a sudden there's going to be a federal freaking case.
Right. And
that doesn't usually happen. And there's a lot going on in that area. And we know that these people, like in the Southern District of New York, that court, we know that even some of but the Diddy stuff, there's crossover there, whether people like it or not. Those people run in the same circles.
Also, that's where Harvey Weinstein's case in New York was from, the Southern District of New York. Yep. They are he had his sentence overturned, but they are litigating that. They announced the charges like 2 weeks ago. They are, and right after he was rushed to the hospital in Los Angeles and had to have like emergency surgery, and they indicted him like right around the same time as that. Like, so there's a lot. And somebody asked, like, does the SDNY case with Sean Combs, does that make you think that there's gonna be more movement in the Vince McMahon case? And she was like, probably, it's possible, but we don't know. And she just said, regardless, we hope it happens expeditiously, because Janel deserves her day in court. And so we hope it happens as soon as possible if they are going to charge him. And she also reminded us that there is a civil lawsuit in place as well that they can't do anything with, because this case is on hold and they have to wait for the DOJ. So the civil lawsuit also can't move forward. And so they're in the process with how the thing with Dr. Carlin Kolker, who with Peak Wellness, and they're trying to gather information. And both Vince and Dr. Colker both tried to stop that from them getting information. And Janelle's just trying to access her medical records that she never had access to.
She's legally entitled to, by the way.
Yeah, and the judge sided with her and said, no, you have the right to gather this information even while your lawsuit is on pause for now. And so,
well, that's discovery. It doesn't, I mean, I know that they wanted to try and be like, you can't do this because it's state. That's not how the legal system works, guys.
No. And so she did say, in addition, she just said there has been no update on the SDNY case. If there are charges, they want them to come expeditiously. One person, I heard his name and I was like, I did not expect him to be on the call, but he said his name was Lee Cole, and I knew immediately who that was. His brother, Tom Cole, was one of the Ring Boys.
I was gonna ask.
Yes. And I was like, whoa. Because obviously when you're in these situations, you have to say your name and identify what outlet you were with. And Lee didn't. And so Kendra stopped him and she's like, what outlet are you with? And he said, oh, and he named the podcast. And he said, and I'm Tom Cole's brother. Tom was one of the Ring Boys. But I knew his voice because I listened to his podcast. He did a podcast in February because another former Ring Boy came forward with his story of abuse and what happened to him when he was the Ring Boy.
Lee's been really pushing to try and get them justice for a long time. Lee is
the one who pushed Tom to come forward in the first place.
And I mean, even the other person who may or may not be named, although, like I said, if you read Wrestling Babylon, you can kind of get an idea of some of the people that were involved in that scandal.
Oh, I wrote an article about it in February.
I do give Lee a lot of credit for, that's his brother. And they deserve justice too.
They do. And that was actually Lee's question was like, he was like, I have people who have asked, said this to me about like, why did you why did you wait to come forward? And so he asked, like, how would Janelle respond, or how would Ann Callis respond to people asking why she would return to WWE if she was being abused in this way? And Ann said, she's a victim of abuse. She was coerced and human trafficked and felt she had no choice. And then there were people who worked with WWE who told her they were aware of her relationship with Vince, and she was met with hostility from these people. So she had nowhere to turn. He literally, as we're seeing with this stuff with Dr. Carlin Colker, if we are to believe what's coming out from this, he had control. That's how much control he had over her life, is that he controlled which doctor she saw, and he was getting information from that doctor about what she was being given, and she was not even being given that information. She was given IV drips. She was given pills and supplements, and when she questioned what they were, the doctor would tell her that if you don't trust me, then we have much bigger problems. And
which is a threat.
Right.
That's a threat. If a doctor says that, if anyone says something like that to you in that freaking tone, that's a threat. So why did she go back? Because she was being perpetually threatened. And she was being being abused by multiple people. She was being trafficked. It's not as simple as, and so somebody and then you see these comments from people like Mark Henry, who said a few months ago, oh, well, it wasn't a problem until the money ran out, which is the most correct bootlicker thing, one of the most bootlicker things that you can say. Yeah,
I mean, besides being just horrendous to say that to a victim of abuse, but that's just bootlicker mentality. It's and which we see a lot from these wrestlers, which we will get to in just when we get to these other comments that were made. And then so there was let me see, I think I covered most of what I wanted to say, but this is the point that really sticks with me. I know it's only been 4 or 5 days, but this is the comment that I keep going back to. Micro asked how Janel Grant has been portrayed in the press, and Ann Callis says Janel Grant, and are basically how we can do a better job of how the media portrays her. She said, Janel Grant is a human. She deserves justice. She is a victim and a survivor. She is not a storyline, which tells me they know damn well that storyline and why I rate. And people still tried to argue anytime any of us brought that up, that that stuff that was going on with Liv and that Liv Morgan storyline from the end of July. And we had the discussion about the entire episode. That tells me that I don't know that Janel is aware of it or saw it, but that tells me that Ann Callis saw it and she knows about that. That tells me that SKDK knows about it. That tells me the agency group knows about it. And other people that are supporting Janel and part of her team are aware that WWE, even though Paul Levesque says he's never read the lawsuit, it's very obvious that he has, because of the way they made that episode with Liv was basically them playing out Janel.
They're trying to make
wrestling fans see it.
Hate her.
Yeah.
Detest her. To make her look like a word I'm not going to say. Like, that's what they're doing, though. That's how propaganda works, and that's exactly
how. Well, and
that's what they do. That's what they've always done.
On brand for what they have always done.
Yes, Megan. They are all bootlickers.
This is how we go back to Trish Stratus being put on all fours and barking like a dog. The way that he would treat even Ashley Massaro on TV when she wouldn't do certain things, how they have treated other women who have reportedly rejected his advances, and the way that he portrayed, and not only that, the way he portrayed women in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and how they were sexualized, or if him or other writers didn't find them attractive enough, how they were presented in comparison to other women. So this has been, I mean, they prove it there's decades of proof on the way they think, how they think of women, and how
right
they
on the TVs.
them.
I watched
so they did it again, and it was appalling to watch this in real time. Like, as soon as I realized what was happening, like I was so angry as it was happening. But we had the conversation, like in the group that I was watching it with, we had a conversation in real time of what was happening, and they all saw it too. Like, it wasn't just me. Like, no, I see it. Like, I get it.
How about this? I read about it the next day, what they were doing, and went, are you joking? Like, I had a double take on that. I'm like, and even them, I mean, it's like, I know that there's no such thing as too low for them, but wow. I mean, and I really want to sort of like underscore and bring it back to the thing that Ann Callis kept making the point of, and that you made the point of in your, following the story, is that Janel deserves to tell Janel's story, period.